to all of my qualifiers, my family, my friends. Dr. George Fabre here. Listen, you are all in for a treat. We're going to discuss the increasing rate of homelessness in South Florida and how it's affected many communities, such as the Black community, the white community, Asian community, you name it. Many have been affected by the increasing amount of homelessness. As we know, through the pandemic, over 6 million jobs have been lost. People have been dying left and right, unfortunately. And the homelessness rate has increased over 68%. And the number is continuously going up and rising. So I have none other than Dr. Kanisha Bryant, both in the same cohort. And it's an honor for me to have her on this show as we discuss this topic. And without further ado, I would just like to get started with this. Dr. Kanisha, please feel free to say hello to the people who are watching you abroad on this wonderful Thursday evening.
Hey everyone, again, my name is Dr. Kanisha Bryant. As Dr. Fabre eloquently mentioned, I am a program manager dealing with homelessness services in South Florida.
Awesome. Dr. Bryant, you know, it is a topic that we can discuss from many spectrums. We can discuss it from a racial spectrum. We can discuss it from the aspect of how it's affecting several communities. But let us be more broad with it, because my objective is, I feel like so many of us don't see what's going on within that community, because all we see is the infrastructure of those who are just asking for money when we're driving or whatever have you, and the situation may vary, and we don't know that that individual was once an individual who was doing well. Because
I actually had this conversation with a good friend of mine, an individual that he knew personally who was once homeless. That individual used to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. And because of his years of being an attorney and years vested, he just could not deal with what he was seeing on a day-to-day basis happen to people. It brought him into such a state of depression where eventually he just became homeless. So many people have various reasons for being homeless. But let me ask you this, what do you think, other than the pandemic and those who have lost millions, we can say over 6 million and counting, who has lost jobs, what would you say is the overall issue or problem that's causing the current homeless rate to continuously grow?
So, Dr. Fabre, I cannot ever give you one single reason why someone may be experiencing homelessness. There are several. There's different reasons why people experience homelessness. And this is just a little pet peeve of mine. Refer to people who are experiencing homelessness as people who are experiencing homelessness, not homeless people. I'm not saying you did, but just because that's the title you put on someone.
Right.
You could be experiencing homelessness at any time. We are not exempt. So to call someone homeless, a homeless person, or homeless people, that cringes my soul.
Educate me.
It's people who are experiencing homelessness. I just got to put that out there. Why some people might be experiencing homelessness. It could be individuals and families. And some of the reasons could be mental health and substance disorder. There's people have undiagnosed mental health disorders that goes untreated, that conflicts with their work environment. They lose their job, then they can't pay bills, and they experience homelessness. They also might have substance usage disorder that combines with their mental health disorder. So, and then it can be also, if they are young adults, they might be part of the LGBTQI community and their family don't agree with their choices and they're kicked out. They could be experiencing homelessness. It could be just situational homelessness where someone lost their job. They can't find work, as we live in South Florida. It's not as if there's a working wage here in South Florida, and it's hard to find income to supplement housing. It can be education. They don't have enough education to supplement for any job out there. So there's various reasons why any one of us could be experiencing homelessness. Like you said, we both went through the doctoral program. We're educated. We have the papers to prove it.
Right.
But it could be a situation where me or you or anyone that we know can experience So I don't want people to assume and think that people that you see on the street asking for money are just asking, just to ask. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what they are going through and the reasons why they are experiencing homelessness. But there are different reasons why any one of us could be experiencing homelessness. The main reason are the ones that I provided, but also there's not a working wage in South Florida. Rent here, 1 bedroom minimum, if lucky to find $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Where are you going to find a place to going to be able, a job for that, on top of the utilities, on top of groceries? So the wages for employment is low down here, and that contributes greatly for people who are experiencing homelessness.
That's a very good factor, and I definitely appreciate the clarity, because it is needed, because we all have a developed perspective, as you mentioned, and I can understand how that developed perspective can cause discomfort, especially when having this conversation with anybody on any platform, because you mentioned something about the wages down here, and the wages in South Florida. I have a good friend of mine who assured me and guaranteed and promised me they will never move down here
because of the cost of living and how expensive it is. And it's merely impossible for many of us to survive in this climate. And there's one thing you said that was real profound, which leads me to ask you, because you started talking about education, because we both are educated folks, and we've seen educated people, as I mentioned in the initial preliminary introduction of this podcast, when I discussed how many people have, like an individual I mentioned, but there are many more, but I mentioned this one individual who was an attorney and who just couldn't, survive or couldn't maintain the livelihood that he was living in. It just was overwhelming for him. And people don't understand. You mentioned mental health as well, amongst other things. How involved is the education system, based on what you do and what you experience on a day-to-day basis? How involved is the education system in helping abolish homelessness?
So it depends on what part of the education system you're looking at. So if you're looking at the K through 12 education system, there are programs in Broward County that identify children who are experiencing homelessness, and they identify them along with their families and provide support to them to help. Now, of course, they can't house them. They don't have the resources to house them because they're school board. So they offer them resources to connect them to different services in the community to help alleviate whatever situation that they're going through. From my knowledge from college, there's all the education system can really do is provide resources to them and referral systems. There's to look at the underlying situation, and each person's situation is always unique. So if someone is experiencing homelessness simply because lack of education, there's programs to help people to get, of course, GED, vocational programs, and hopefully get them a job. But like you mentioned, we live in South Florida, so the cost of living is still high. So it just depends on a person's unique situation and the underlying reason why someone is experiencing homelessness. But for families who have children, K through 12, who are experiencing homelessness, meaning that they stand with relatives, they don't have a place of their own, there's programs within the school system, in Broward County school system, that helps them and provides them with resources so the child can matriculate with their academic career without any interruption.
I definitely am glad to know that we do offer a program, because there's another major issue, and this is rampant on different platforms, from different spectrums in regards to criminal justice, public safety,
the policing of this country,
especially with what's going on with the police force right now. And we want to be transparent with this here, because the major concern is the criminal justice system. Many have discovered, and this is a recent study indicated, that a lot of homeless people are scared of the criminal justice people, those who are experiencing homelessness.
Those who are experiencing that stage of life currently, they are afraid of policing. They're afraid to call police for help. They're afraid to call police for any situation, whatever have you. There was a recent report, I think it was about 48,000 people were entering shelters annually. But out of those 48,000 people who were entering those shelters were coming out of prisons.
They were coming out of jails. And the thing is, those people don't know the normal way of life. They're afraid to be on the streets. They don't really know what to do to get started, how to get connected with people, network, whatever have you, because they just left prison and jail. And they're afraid of police officers. So they're afraid to be in regular society because some of them are afraid to resort back to, in the words of Dr. Richard Lewis, recidivism. They're afraid of going back because studies have showed after 6 months, these folks have the propensity to go right back to prison. But the biggest thing is 11 million people are incarcerated every year. And out of the 11 million people who are incarcerated annually, approximately 15% have been reported homeless right after they've been released. And in some cases, either they've been reported homeless after they leave prison, meaning they don't know what to do, or they were homeless prior to, and then they get incarcerated. What are your views in regards to criminal justice and why a lot of us who are experiencing homelessness are afraid of police? Why do you think they're afraid of the policing in this country? And what suggestions do you have that you feel can actually be of assistance to our brothers and sisters experiencing homelessness?
Well, Dr. Fabre, you know I'm not going to get on this platform and act like there's an issue with police and Black and brown people. So let's get that on the table, clear as day. I cannot do it. So you know there's an issue.
Absolutely.
That's a whole nother topic.
Keep your mind. Right.
So that's a whole nother issue and concern. Besides that, let me say that you do have police presence in discussions when it comes to homelessness. They have set aside and made task force specifically to deal with homelessness. You have some policemen here in Broward County that going through special training to engage with people who are experiencing homelessness and participate with the county to help eradicate homelessness in Broward County. So I can't get on here and say that the police force just don't want to help solve homelessness. They do. It's a problem, and we all live in Broward County, and it's all of our social to solve, whether you are passionate about it as I am or not. To answer your question, how do someone engage in services after they leave?
Ultimately, what suggestions would you provide maybe someone in criminal justice, or maybe in these instances of how they could be much more effective as far as when dealing with folks who are experiencing homelessness? Because a lot of us who are experiencing homelessness, we're afraid of police, and these numbers are showing it. So basically from that standpoint, for sure.
Our understanding, when someone is about to be released, they have a case manager after plan. It's documented on where you going. Do you have somewhere to go to? You have somewhere to go to. So if the answer is no, they do not have anywhere to go to, they receive some money and open the gates, or if they're not from wherever they incarcerated, they get a bus ticket. And unfortunately, they end up either on the streets or in a homeless shelter. The main issue for anyone, whether they're leaving prison or coming to the shelter, is having to address the overall issue and getting therapy to see what's going on, of why you are experiencing homelessness. Is just one of the consequences, but reasons of what's going on. There's an underlying issue that needs to be addressed. So if you're leaving the prison if you're leaving prison or jail and you're experiencing homelessness, do we need to talk about any mental health issues? Do we need to talk about any substance usage issues? Do we need to talk about education? Like, what else do we need to talk about? Because there's a reason why the trajectory ends it like this. And someone, of course, want to start fresh, want to start anew, don't want to be judged on their past. So let's talk about what happened so we don't make those same mistakes. As far as engaging with police, I mean, like, we're Black and brown people, we have to say it, we have to be cautious just like anyone else. I can't get on here and lie and say, you can just go and ask for help. You just got to know where. So anyone who is experiencing homelessness in Polk County can always call the homeless helpline. The homeless helpline basically initiates an assessment for homeless services. That number is 954-563-4357. So anyone who is experiencing homelessness should call that number to start to receive services, and an assessment will be done. If it's immediate shelter placement that is needed, they'll be connected to get into shelter, be paired with the case manager, and hopefully eventually get into housing. So it's more of getting connected to social services, wanting to receive that help, and getting connected to those social services.
Awesome. And I'm glad you provided that resource, because we'll bring that back again so you can provide that resource amongst others.
Sure.
It's definitely important for a lot of us to know, because we may have a family member, a friend that we can't house ourselves. And people need to understand the concept of homelessness is an individual who doesn't have a place to stay. You understand?
Right.
And it could be a temporary state. It could be something that occurred. They lost their job, whatever have you. But these are resources we're going to be offering as well to help all of you who are watching today. As Dr. Bryant mentioned, get the help you need. And you mentioned something about, I love that, about tackling the actual issue, the why of how you became homeless. That is very important, because oftentimes we drift away and make excuses. And like you said, you'd be wrong to come here and just sugarcoat what the reality is. Profiling is real. And I literally had a short post I made recently, about close to a week ago, on profiling, and how a lot of people in higher places, whether it's policing, CEOs of businesses, whatever it is, we don't use these opportunities as mentoring opportunities, because mentor means you're willing to help someone whose situation that is not as advanced as yours. And you're able to provide them with insight, resources, services, and the ability to lead them to become great. And oftentimes we miss on these resources, or these opportunities, I should say, to help others. Because as you mentioned, we can't lie here, and I don't want to lie. A lot of homeless people, and this is true story, they're automatically viewed and profiled as criminals. People are scared of them. Oh, you just want to buy drugs, or you just want to buy a drink, or you just want to do this, whatever have you. Do you believe, and you can provide a no hold bars response as you have been, and I love it. Do you believe that in instances when a police officer is called in a scene where there's someone who feels threatened by an individual because they're less fortunate, or they don't look as elegant as that individual, whatever have you, do you believe in these case scenarios a psychologist, a therapist, or anyone in social work, or someone from an agency that assists individuals who are experiencing homelessness, do you think they should also be called to the scene? Because you did say that there's training for police officers in Broward County, and I won't lie to you, there is training for police officers, but it's quite obvious the training hasn't been used. And we don't want to lie, because we do have that incident that occurred a few years ago where the police officer in Hollywood, and was recorded, smacked the homeless gentleman, and it became a big deal, and that was Broward County. And in which the county we live. Do you believe in these instances someone should be contacted when it comes to a scene where an officer is called, or whatever have you, a social worker or so forth, someone in these arenas to assist in these cases?
Definitely depends. Again, it depends on the situation. And most time, if the first person that's going to get called is the police. If someone calls, they're going to call 911 and call the police, and the police is going to come out there. In a perfect world, or what we hope is that once the police get there and they assess or ask the person who is experiencing homelessness basically what's going on, and if they identify that this might be a mental health episode, that they do call providers that do out. It should be where you have mental health researchers that come out to assess the situation along with police force. Let me be clear, along with police force, because it should be we all working together, not you go do it or you go do it. It takes a community impact for us to really do it, and it should be all of us working together to help one another, and it should be a collaboration rather when you address these issues, and it should be comprehensive, be cohesive, and it should just flow. Like if you get a call, it should be non-emergency unless once you get there, it determines it gets escalated, but it should be a combination of a mental health provider and someone from the police force as well.
Okay. And you, again, I can't say this enough, how this issue is important, because during this pandemic, millions have experienced loss of wages, loss of jobs, and we already know the cost of living didn't go down during the pandemic. In fact, in some instances, it might have gone up, and we have to be honest and tackle these actual issues. We're almost at the end, and I can't tell you that this is a continuous conversation, and we definitely have to get you back on this podcast, because we do have more that we want to discuss with, and I'm sure more resources will evolve and develop as time proceeds. But let me say this, many have felt like there are barriers to receive housing. Can you provide some more information on if there are barriers, what the barriers are, and provide us with also some resources for housing people can take advantage of? And if it's beyond just the homeless demographic, anyone else that can benefit from housing as well?
Sure. So there are some barriers to housing in South Florida because, number one, there's lack of affordable housing. Another episode, but it just irks me that we keep building high rises and not affordable housing. Mm-hmm. I digress.
Can you say that one more time for the folks in the back?
We keep building high rises, but not affordable housing. I digress. So lack of affordable housing, the work wages is an issue. That's on top of mental health. That's on top of substance usage disorders. And then another thing that we'll probably have to talk about in another segment is supportive services. So you do get someone who is experiencing homelessness, whether it's an individual or a family, and they get a subsidy where the government pays a portion of it and you put them in housing. Okay, but what happens after that? Do you give them or support them with the skills they need to maintain that housing? Did you give them what they need in order to change their view? Now I'm housed, now what? What support do I have to maintain this housing? And do we have enough of that in Broward County? So how someone, believe it or not, it's very easy to put someone in housing, especially if they want it. The main thing is to help them maintain it with supportive services in Broward County. That's the real issue, in my opinion.
Okay. So since we do have these resources now, at least there's some type of progress where we can actually offer the resources to get an individual started. And again, I want to thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Bryant, more importantly. But can you please provide us with all the resources and services that you feel would be beneficial, phone numbers and websites that folks can take advantage of, that we can offer for anyone, again, who's experiencing homelessness. And homelessness, as Dr. Bryant mentioned, and I'm glad she educated me and corrected me on that, because it's important to know the truth. Homelessness is not a germ. It's an experience. And anyone can experience homelessness at any point in their life. There's no denial. Don't think that you are special or you're exempt from that experience. So provide us with the resources and services that you know we can capitalize on.
So if you or anyone you know, family or friends, are experiencing homelessness in Broward County, the first thing they need to do, have to do, is call the Homeless Hotline. It is 955-663-4357. And when they call this number, it's going to be able to initiate an assessment for homeless services. They're basically going to talk to someone and ask them a series of questions to determine how severe of homelessness they are and connect them to resources in the community in Broward County to help alleviate that situation. Also, currently, Broward County Housing Authority has opened up their wait list for their public housing. And you have to, I think, apply, you do have to apply to get on their wait list at bchafl.org. So if you Google it, just put in Broward County Housing Authority. Can only sign up for the wait list online. Can't call or walk up because of COVID, but just online to get on the wait list. And again, right now, those are the main sources to get into the system of care with homelessness. You have to call the Homeless Hotline and get an assessment done to see how severe of the situation is to connect you to the services that is offered in the county.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Brian, I can't tell you enough. I appreciate you on this Thursday evening, spending time with us. You are definitely an awesome resource. And more importantly, folks, family, friends, those of you who are experiencing anything of the sort, do not hesitate to take advantage of these resources. And if you have any other questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and I'll connect you to the right folks, the right people, the resources you need. I'll get in touch with Dr. Bryant, and she'll steer us the right direction. And I want to thank everybody on this wonderful Thursday. Thank you all for watching disQUALIFIED podcast, disQUALIFIED TV podcast. And trust me, as I promised, you were in for a treat and you got the resources you need at this capacity, and there's always more to come. Remember to tune in next Thursday, and we have something in store for you. We have another treat for you next Thursday. And we want to thank you all for watching. And again, thank you, Dr. Bryant, for joining us on this wonderful podcast. We wish you all a happy Thursday, a great and safe weekend. God bless. Peace.
Good day to all of my qualifiers, my family, my friends. I want to take this moment to thank you all for watching this podcast. We have more to come every Thursday at 6 p.m. Expect to get some new material, new content that we will be sharing. We'll be covering all types, all sorts of topics. Don't miss out. Listen, follow us, subscribe. Do all that you got to do. Subscribe to our YouTube page. What are you waiting for? Let's get it done. Let's do this together. Share, comment, provide all the insight that you have. Let us share and learn from each other respectfully and with love. One more thing. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. I am drg.fab. Also on Facebook, Dr. George Fabre. And don't forget to like our page. And also, if you want this merchandise, you want all these apparel merchandise and all of the things that we have to offer, our book, The Controversy of Divorce and Remarriage, don't forget to go to drgeorgefabre.com. Again, drgeorgefabre.com. I appreciate and love all of you all. See you next week, 6 p.m.